Well, hey, welcome back to the North Florida Sports Network. From Fangs Up Podcast, Keith, what's up, man? Welcome to the North Florida Sports Network.
Oh, man, all is well, good brother. I am excited to be here, man. I've heard some great things and, always good to be with a fellow Trojan, man.
That's right, man. North Florida in town, man. Keith been covering FAMU for a few years now, and he was up in Atlanta for the Celebration Bowl, where FAMU brought back the HBCU National Championship 30-26. Let's talk about the game. The game started not the way FAMU wanted it, though, did it, man? 14-0 in the first quarter, man. What was going through your head?
What is Moussa doing?
Yeah.
What is Moussa doing? What is his offensive line doing? And just kind of, is this a microcosm of what we've seen all season from this team? Like, this has been a team that they create their own adversity and they just kind of work the way back through it, but they're going to always kind of get on your nerves at the beginning. Like, we've been that one child that's just doesn't know how to act right, that can't get it together, and then you got to chastise them at halftime. It's been that team where they've been the quintessential second half team. And, you really hate to say that about a team, but they've been that, and they are what they are.
Well, want to give credit to Howard. Howard came to play, and I had a feeling that they were. A lot of people, FAMU was favored in this game, big favorites coming in with the record. But Howard, the way they took care of Central up there, what was it, 50-20?
50-20, man. And that was one of those games where, we were at the Classic talking about it on the sideline, and that was one of the cool parts. They were like, hey, you heard what happened with Central and Howard. It's like, yeah, how did it happen? And some of the guys were like, well, supposedly a flu bug went through Central and they weren't feeling their best, whatever. And it's like, well, whatever happened, Howard executed and took advantage of it. It really, and it completely changed it. Like, it was the Celebration Bowl that nobody expected. But if you were like an HBCU purist, it's kind of the Celebration Bowl you wanted.
Yeah, man, this was my first experience. And honestly, I went to the first FAMU game to cover it last season. And it was when Jackson, my first question was like, if they're good enough, why wouldn't they want to compete in a playoff? That's my, compete for the championship. I now know why. My friend. Celebration Bowl is why. It's a great event. Why? And we talked to the SWAC commissioner. He kind of let us know too what was going on with that. Why would you want to go play in a tournament where you're not even allowed to host, right? Because of some requirement, or then you have to pay to go far away to play in a game that's not going to be fair based on what you did in the regular season, So, or you can go to Atlanta in Mercedes-Benz Stadium and get the whole treatment, and I saw the look on the player's face before the game, and I think I have my answer right there.
Yeah, and it's just, and FAMU's hosted playoff games before, so it's kind of different. It's that, I guess that when you've gotten older and become that next generation, and it's weird to think of yourself like that, but I'm a part of that generation that did experience playoff games at FAMU, and then you go to the Celebration Bowl and you're like, oh, this is different. Like, playoff games at FAMU were fun, but to kind of see last year the process and how the city of Tallahassee contributed. To their credit, they tried to help get FAMU to host the playoff game. Yeah. It didn't come to fruition, but you started to see like, the Celebration Bowl was nice, and definitely an event I highly suggest individuals go to. If you haven't
been, or it's definitely worth the while. And, especially in nowadays with the bowls, if you're not in the playoff in the FBS, these guys aren't really playing in the bowl game, and to see what it meant to the fan bases, what it meant to the players, I fell in love with it as just a fan of college football. I understood it, and man, it's something to be proud of. It's something to play for. I took a step into the Howard press conference after the game, and you could just feel the hurt in there. And I love, not that I love, and I'm not trying to do that, but you could feel the magnitude of the game. Mm-hmm. Is that fair to say?
No, it's definitely fair, and man, it's true. Like I had to leave early because it was just how they did some of the stuff, but you could tell like the coaches you were waiting and the anticipation, and I remember just standing in there. It's like, oh, I'm gonna step out and step back in, and Coach Simmons walks in. He's like, "We ready to go?" He's like, "Okay, well, I got to do this. I got to do it." Like it was definitely different, and to me, this was the best bowl experience I've ever had. It was my second. We did the Gasparilla Bowl when UF played UCF.
Okay.
And that was my wife's first ever time going to, see UCF. And I just was like, you can't do this by yourself because she's never been to like UF type events. But it was just a different feel and different atmosphere. Like it was very engaging at that bowl game. But this one, it was just a lot different because of the bands, the pageantry, because of what it really meant to both fan bases and kind of the fact that there's a rivalry like between these two schools made it pretty sweet.
It's really cool. And I saw fans from all the schools in both conferences, MEAC and SWAC, at the game because this was kind of a celebration of HBCU football. Man, it's just a cool event. The vice president was in the house. She's an alum of Howard. The bands, you got two top-notch bands. I mean, that's a show in itself right there.
Yeah. The battle of the bands the previous night, and we missed that. I missed it because the other side of it, it's a family event. Like to me, that was the biggest difference between that and literally, I rode up there with family after the Friday when we got up there. We went down the street to a restaurant to eat. Saturday after the game, like it's almost a homecoming 2.0. You have so many friends that come to town and everything, and literally just running into people. And it's the other side of meeting other people that cover HBCU athletics and that cover the sport. And it's like you're meeting this person from different areas and spaces you may have shared with, but now you're meeting them in person. And it's the other side of the genuine enjoyment of meeting each other and talking to each other and really talking about the sport.
Man, and FAMU, man, they were able to get together. We were back at the game. Moussa, he's been turnover prone all year, but it doesn't phase him. He just gets back and keeps slinging it. I liked the adjustments that Coach Simmons made. He made some plays where I think he's been doing that a lot with the pitchbacks where Moussa doesn't have to really read the defense much. Once you get it, you sling it deep.
Yeah. Moussa is definitely one of those pre-snap quarterbacks. Like if you look at him, what he sees pre-snap is what he tends to go with. And I've called him Jekyll and Hyde Moussa at times this year because he'll have a half of a game where you're just like, what are you doing? And the second half, you're like, oh snap, this is actually good. Like, and this is what we saw from him. Moussa, he fumbles the ball. Like that's just, the season's over. So it doesn't matter if I tell you he's going to fumble the ball if you put pressure on him. He does tend to hold the ball a little too long. And he can just sometimes throw balls in places where he shouldn't. But when Moussa gets hot and when he doesn't have to think, he becomes dangerous. When it becomes fluid and he's just throwing the ball in the moment, Moussa becomes the best quarterback in the SWAC in that moment. Is he the most mobile quarterback? No, but can Moussa actually run? Yeah.
He can catch
Moussa's
too.
Just smart about it. He can catch too.
Yeah, we saw that. That was a great play. Another great play that was called back, unfortunately, for the Rattlers.
Yeah.
But it's also easier when you are turning the ball over, when you can turn to a defense like FAMU has put together this year, a special unit led by Majors, who, man, this guy's all over the field, man. I mean, everywhere.
Huge.
Isaiah Majors, number 0.
Transfer.
Yeah, transfer. Where did he come from?
Independence Community College.
Oh, so yeah. That's where they did Hard Knocks, right?
Yeah, I believe he was on that Hard Knocks season with Jermaine Johnson from Florida State.
Wow.
So that's I believe he could be on there. I may be misspeaking, but he did come from Independence.
He shined. He shined throughout on the game. Do you think he'll be playing at the next level?
I think so. I think he's 6'1", 230 pounds, maybe closer to 6 feet. But I think because he's able to fly around the field, he's going to be a guy that at least makes a practice squad. Do I think he's going to be the next Marquise Bell? Not necessarily, but the fact he's averaging about 10 tackles per game, something crazy like that. And he also won SWAC Player of the Year, in my opinion, largely because of the amount of turnovers he got. I mean, Major returns an interception for a touchdown. He had a fumble recovery in the Florida Classic. So him making big plays at big times, they're impact plays at the right moment. And I feel like if you are he's one of those guys, and I'm not a Patriots fan, but if you're a New England Patriots fan and a Bill Belichick fan, he is a Bill Belichick type of guy,
right,
who reminds you of some of those, like, okay, Teddy type guys, Teddy Bruschi guy.
Yeah.
I think Major's that kind of guy.
I think he can play at the next level. You see Dankwa on Howard, man. I mean, he's so big. He's definitely
That's number 77, 6'8", 330 some pounds.
Yeah, 6'8", 370 from Canada.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm telling my friends about it. My family, like, how did you get to Howard? I'm like, I have no idea. And he literally, you saw where that left side of the line, there's no penetration you're getting from there. And that's part of, kind of, as you mentioned earlier in the game, FAMU does go down 14-0, but largely the pass rush just wasn't able to quite get to Howard's quarterback yet. Howard does, and they're stubborn. Like, one of the things about Howard, their offense is just stubborn. They're going to run the ball. That's what they do. And even when you're like kind of looking at the tail of the tape for the game, you're going to look and notice. And as you mentioned, FAMU's offense is imaginative. Willie is doing flea flickers. He's doing double pass. Willie said coming into the game in the SWAC, and not in the SWAC pre-call, but in the post-SWAC championship game, hey, we're going to Celebration Bowl, the playbook's open. Whatever's in there, I'm throwing it at you. And we're all sitting there at the bottom of the Lawson Center in the press conference. I'm like, all right, Willie. And you saw that, like, you're running double passes. You're seeing where you run a freaking reverse to Leland Willoy on a 2-point conversion. Like, just stuff that Willie just doesn't normally do. He just pulled out of his pocket.
Speaking of 2-point conversions, how surprised were you when Howard did not go for one after the pick six?
Oh man, I was a little shocked. I mean, going back and watching the broadcast, it was like Jay Walker's like, "Why didn't you go for two?" And I'm like,
"Yeah, okay, yeah." I mean, I was saying that right away, and then
too conservative, bro.
I guess it was just in the heat of the moment, and you don't have anything prepared. But now
it's just too conservative. Like, I think
it's five. They're in the fourth quarter.
It's fourth quarter.
I was like, dude, you're going to go down. You could lose the field goal by 1 point. And
I don't think he trusts his quarterback at that point. And you start to see where I don't think the quarterback
Williams,
trusted himself.
He was seeing ghosts, man. The dark cloud, just seeing him just pop out of anywhere. They held him 0 touchdowns, 3 interceptions on the game. He didn't get anything going.
Barely 100 yards. I mean, honestly, and when I looked at the game pre-game going into this, I really thought their success would be being able to run really play action and then read option. FAMU has really struggled when teams have run that not so much of a read option play, but it's a halfback dive out of the shotgun formation where the running back runs between the guards and the center. And you've seen where that's really caused problems, partially because FAMU runs a 4-down lineman with the 2 linebackers in the middle, and one of the linebackers normally drops in coverage, one of them blitzes. So all of a sudden, it's literally 5-on-5, but one of those 5 is 220 pounds, 230 going against a 300-pound man.
Right.
Obviously, size on size, that don't match. And so I was surprised that Howard did not take advantage of that more often, where they did run that play, but they didn't run that play into a read option for the quarterback.
Yeah. Honestly, if Moussa didn't have a couple just boneheaded interceptions, just to be frank, FAMU dominates this game. They did. If you looked at the numbers, if you kind of watched it, they looked that offense couldn't do anything. After at the beginning, they got the running game going a little bit when they had short fields. They started both the first 2 drives for Howard were on the 27 of FAMU and then the 37 on the next drive. So that was after that, it was pretty much lights out.
Yeah, it's over. Like I said, Moussa has 4 turnovers. You get a safety, a fumble, and 2 picks.
Right.
Now, the last pick wasn't really fully on Moussa.
Right.
The tight end doesn't really do a great job of blocking, but at the same point, I don't know how great
throw it.
Right. Like, why don't you just check out of the play? Like, when you're looking at the play, Howard's running what looks like a base 4-3. They have what really is a 1-high safety, but they really have 3 guys over the top. But the left side of the field is wide open. If you go back and look there, man, that if Moussa audibles that play to where the receiver runs a route and the halfback runs in the flat, you can get something out of that. Like, there were some opportunities for that play to turn into something where you just ignore the right side of the ball because the corner's on the line of scrimmage.
Right.
Play.
Yeah. All right, so Celebration Bowl champions, HBCU National champions. Let's talk about the offensive MVP from right here in Rickards, right? Coming back, transferring back home, has a game of the ages for him out of nowhere. Let's see what we got, man. I'm sorry, I'm not thinking of his name real here. I got to
Kelvin Dean.
Oh, Kelvin Dean, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Dean,
And
number 9.
It's crazy though. Coach Simmons talked about it this morning in the show. He's not the show, but in his morning, end of the season wrap up. And he's like, Kelvin Dean, like we're talking about all the stuff. He fumbles at the beginning of the game.
Right.
And Simmons goes, normally when you fumble, you're out of the game. So when Kelvin comes back, he's like, I don't know if I'm going to get to play again because and all of a sudden you go from fumbling and, really giving Howard a chance to make some plays to you become the catalyst for the victory.
Kind of shows what this team's about. Yeah. They come out, they stub their toe and they go get it fixed and come out 3 catches, 87 yards, 2 touchdowns for Kelvin Dean on the night.
And the unsung heroes, it's really Tallahassee laden. I mean, you could look at Kelvin Dean, but don't forget about, Kamari Young blows a block, but Kamari Young, Godby High School, I believe, tight end, makes a big catch there. And you see another North Florida representative in Terrell Jennings. Terrell Jennings had a really good running game, you know, so you start look at Riley, like another guy, Tallahassee native, like you start seeing like, we got a lot of talent.
They didn't want Riley to beat him. They had him. There was one deep play where they had him, and they just missed on the timing there. But Shareed was there. Jamar Shareed. He's been explosive all year. He had the go ahead touchdown late.
Yeah, transfer to Texas State.
Yeah. So FAMU is hitting up the transfer portal. What about who's leaving this roster? First off, that's notable here that fans want to know.
Moussa for sure. I mean, if you're a Rattler fan, it's Moussa, but you do have a quarterback coming in. But going back to the call this morning, Coach Simmons, he made it very abundantly clear. We're going to be hitting the quarterback, looking for the transfer portal, looking for a quarterback. Junior Muratovic is the incumbent, but Junior's been kind of hit or miss, and his ability to read the field can be in question. But you have a quarterback room filled. You have Boney, you have you got Fisher in there too if you want to count him, but you got a quarterback room filled. But the street committee is saying Andrew Body is a potential guy. You're also going to be looking at the receiver room. You're looking like you're losing 5 receivers out of your receiver room, and you already have 2 more that have entered the transfer portal. So you're pretty much desolate as far as the receivers, even though you do have Burke coming back. He's a receiver you got from Jacksonville Rains High School. The tight end room is empty. Sage Ennis, a proud Lincoln High School graduate, transferring from Clemson. That was a huge get out of the transfer portal because otherwise you're down to like 1 tight end with any lick of experience. The offensive line is going to be great. The defensive line is going to be back solid. Your linebacker room, though, you're losing your top linebacker, but Chaney's coming in behind him. Okay, and the secondary is going to take a big hit. The other big question is, do you get Kendall Bowler back? Kendall Bowler, 6-foot corner, Ocoee High School. Literally, I ride my bike to the school he graduated from. But are you going to miss him? And how's that going to go? But the big thing is the receiver room and special teams. You're losing a lot.
Well, signing day is right around the corner. Early signing day, that is. You got the transfer portal. It's changed the game so much, man. It's hard to keep track, and as a fan, you don't want to almost get too attached to some of these players because you have to look at it in a whole different perspective now with this transfer portal.
Yeah. I mean, it's and you see the ebb and flow. You see how schools are benefited and hurt by the transfer portal. I mean, FAMU eats very well because Florida State's there. I mean, you look at, Goss being there, Kobe Gross that was there. I mean, you start looking at, hey, what happens if a guy like, FSU's current starter, but what if he enters the transfer portal and decides, hey, I'm from Valdosta, I want to, go somewhere where I can play. Well, I can go right across the street to FAMU and play.
Rodemaker? Gardenhoser?
What if Tate leaves?
Well, Florida State's in the transfer portal marker too for a quarterback. I think they're getting DJ Uwe If
I
I
think it's
had to
either
predict
DJ or
it,
Casey.
that's what I think is going to happen. Speaking of Florida State, you had the chance to speak with all-time FSU great Peter Warwick on your podcast. You need to check it out if you haven't. Subscribe to it. Fangs Up Podcast. It's on Apple, Spotify. It's on YouTube. Check them out, man. Give them a like. Give them a subscribe. Peter Warwick, man. What was it like? And then he's a big FAMU fan too. He's always at the games. What was it like getting to catch up with him?
It was cool, man. And it was just like we're just walking in the concourses. And part of it is, I mean, I'm a Tallahassee native. So it's a FAMU FSU thing for me. Those are my favorite two teams. And so I'm walking my camera guy and I was like, dude, that's Peter Warwick. He's like, what? He's, guy's a little younger. I was like, that's Peter Warwick. I explained who he is. I was like, yo, bro, we got to interview him. And so, we walk up on, I was like, hey, did you mind? Anytime you talk to a celebrity, from my perspective, you always ask permission. You don't just start flashing cameras at people because it gets on their nerves. Like I definitely got Wally at the Florida Classic and he was cool about it. But there have been other guys that, hey, you want to be like, nah, I don't want my picture taken. Like, okay, cool. No harm, no foul. But he was like, man, I would love to. And it was just really cool. And, I got to get some jokes in there. Like, and even some, I was like, hey, Pete, I introduced him, Peter Warwick, Florida State football player, should have won the Heisman Trophy. He got robbed. He was like, and did I stand on that? Like, and he actually, leaned into it. And it was just really cool and organic.
Think about that, though. Think about that. Especially in big time college football nowadays, the money, the bags that these guys are getting, and these guys got suspended on for some clothes at Dillard's.
Right. Think about that in modern day times. Imagine what Dillard's
would pay them. Dillard's would give them the clothes, please. Like, just make sure they put that camera footage of you walking out. Make sure we put that on a commercial or something.
Like, what would Publix give? I mean, it's Publix, but still, what would Publix give to have Jameis come in there and do a seafood commercial?
Right. I mean, the game has changed so much, man. Let's keep it right there with Florida State. What did you think when on December 3rd? I talked to Fabian Lovett last week. He seemed kind of businesslike, but man, I felt bad for those players to see the joy in the FAMU locker room and to just be denied to not experience that with those players was something you could kind of tell when I was talking to him. What did you think about that?
I was upset. I mean, just as a fan, and I can separate some of my fandom just because of some of what I'm blessed to be able to do. But I was upset. I really felt like, what's the point of them playing this regular season, having a perfect season, if they're not going to get some type of benefit from it? But I also felt like it devalued the Atlantic Coast Conference. Yeah. And I felt like, honestly, my opinion has been that Florida State's eventually going to leave this conference for the Big Ten. Yeah. But I feel like this devalues the ACC to the point that you have now given Florida State the ammunition to say, why the heck are we here?
Right.
And why are we doing this? Because it makes no sense if we're going to do all of this. We're already facing a $30 million gap between ourselves and UF. Now UCF is caught up to us as far as making funds. What's the point of being in this conference and being a Power 5, now Power 4 school when you can go perfect in the elite conference?
Yeah.
It's snowed.
There's fans, you're never going to get over it. They're never going to remember it. I asked him, because he could have gone NFL last year, and I asked him if he knew what he knew now, would he come back? And he went back and said no because of the brotherhoods and the bond that he formed. And that's what stood out to me is there's multiple ways you can win a game, and football is the ultimate team game. We saw the Celebration Bowl where the quarterback almost lost the game.
Exactly. And I felt like part of the thing was I understand talking about how bad FSU looked in that ACC championship game, but Brock Lynn is a freshman.
Right.
He's a true freshman.
Right.
Take Roadmaker. Let's keep it a buck. He's a better passer than Jordan. So is he the athlete Jordan is? Absolutely not. Can he do a backflip? Yes. No. But he's not the athlete. But give him the chance to spin that thing against a team like Michigan, I think you get a better game than you really think. And Florida State's defense, that was an all-time great defense.
I agree.
Florida State.
I agree. It was 5 years that the Coach Braum had been held under 200 yards. I mean, you don't hold offensive guys like that under like yardage marks. He didn't have nothing. That defense played inspired football because of what was required, which comes back to my point. It's not fair to judge a team on one player. It was bound to happen, though. FSU fans got to know 10 years ago they went undefeated with the Heisman Trophy winner and didn't look pretty enough. They were put number 3 instead of number 1. And you go out across the country, as opposed to staying here. But Fangs Up Podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. What are you looking forward to for this season in the basketball for the Rattlers?
Oh man, basketball season. Honestly, I'm not looking for a lot. I'm looking for some just competitive growth. But I'm really as a fan, I hide my concern. But I'm concerned for the state of basketball, men's basketball in the city of Tallahassee.
Yeah.
We see where both Florida State just lost to SMU. How? No. That should never happen.
Right. And I think that's where you're going to see the gap as far as the conference money distribution is going to be in the second tier sports like basketball, baseball. You got schools like LSU, like forking over money for pitchers. Florida State is going to just try to keep it up with football. They're not going to be able to afford to get these basketball players. So
no,
gotta go to Miami, I guess.
Go to Miami, and honestly, I think that's where FSU baseball is going to shine. Though, I believe in Link Jarrett, and I believe Link Jarrett and Jamie Shoup have really revitalized baseball in Tallahassee. I think if you give them a few years, Hauser is better than some minor league. Heck, Hauser is better than some professional stadiums. I've told many a friend, I'm a Rays fan. I love going to the Trop, but I like it because it's air conditioned. Every other reason, if you put the Rays at Dick Howser Stadium, I would gladly watch that because it's just better sightlines, better venue, just a better baseball facility. But I think, as you mentioned, when you're talking about basketball and those second tier sports, they're going to struggle to keep up. And they're really going to, if you ask me, Florida State's move is going to be to bring back a guy like CY from Missouri. Because
now you
start looking at that coaching staff and what you lost when
it was all downhill once he left.
It was downhill. Once CY leaves, that's the nail.
The talent level went. He was such a key
level left. I don't know how many people got to witness it, and I wish more people could have seen it. But I've played basketball with CY. I'm not even going to say against.
Oh wow!
And because on Thursdays they would play basketball at the practice facility, and so they would get some of the guys together. And my boss at the time, he was like, "Bro, you want to play ball?" I'm like, "Sure, whatever." I'm not thinking we're playing ball at Florida State. We walked down there, and I'm like, "Yo, bro, this is the practice facility." But the level of competition was there, and it was that you had a coach who played international basketball that was able to not only just talk the game, but he was able to give you some buckets. Dookies was there, and you start seeing the old guys come around. I don't know how much you're getting that with Coach Ham right now because he is a little older in age, and the team is falling off. So
ever since the tragedy of the canceled tournament, which was one of my saddest moments in sports until I guess this year, the football team. But man, what a fun event the Celebration Bowl was. What a great season for FAMU. Where does this team rank in all-time FAMU lore here?
Oh man, I'm gonna be modern just because I am a bit younger and I don't want to disrespect the Gaither era. But I definitely think this team is probably in the modern era, top 3 or 4. I mean, you got the Billy Joe era, but they never got it done. You have Patrick Bonner and Quinn Gray and all these amazing quarterbacks and all these, Jaquay Nunnally breaks Jerry Rice's record, but they never got it done. And so I think this is why, I'm hesitant to say they're number 1 because there's so many things, as you mentioned, that FAMU has not put together a complete game this season, where those teams put together complete games, where I think they're top 2 or 3. And it's crazy. The season ends where it's starting next year. First game of the season, August 24th, Atlanta, same city, different stadium, but it's going to be interesting. And you're still going the MEAC SWAC type challenge. So it's going to be good times and good vibes. If you're going up there for that event, go get a box because it'll be hot, but it's pretty cool. I think this is one of the best teams, and we're going to remember this real well.
Man, I'm never going to forget it. What an event it was. Keith, I want to thank you for coming on. Again, check out Keith's podcast, Fangs Up Podcast, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. Keith, let's do it again sometime, all right?
Absolutely, man. I'm only a call away.
All right, Keith. We'll talk to you next time then.
Yes, sir.
All right. Take care.
We had to go. Our ride was here. We got a shuttle to our